Hello class, this is our video lecture for Module 11. We'll be focusing on the role of Congress, and this discussion will be focused mostly on your textbook chapter 12, although there is some information that I have added in that you won't necessarily find in your textbook. So be sure to use this video as a resource to study for your quizzes and to get your assignments done. So first, talking about some of the basic key functions of legislating. So this is an example of some information that's not necessarily in your textbook, but it is important. And these are things that you're probably already familiar with. So first, one of the most basic functions of our legislature is lawmaking. So that includes the practice of drafting or writing and passing laws or legislation. That is the key purpose for Congress, both on the state level and on the national level. However, another key function is representation. So we'll talk a little bit more later on in this video about how the House of Representatives and the Senate are organized. But whether you're a member of the House and you are representing folks in your district, or a member of the Senate and you're representing your entire state, representation is another key function of legislating, and that means you will work with other legislators as well as with the other branches of government in order to represent your constituents, and constituents are those folks that you were elected to represent. That is the definition of your constituency. Constituent services is another important function of being a legislator. So you might consider constituent services to be a kind of casework that is done on an individualized level when individual constituents or groups of constituents approach their legislators with a particular problem, issue, or concern. Then it becomes the legislator's responsibility, as part of representing their constituents, as part of doing their job. They have to find out what the details are of the issue, try and determine if there are any relevant services or agencies that the legislator's office can connect them with, and then if necessary, also connect with other legislators and connect with those agencies on their constituents' behalf so that they can try to get some of their individual cases solved or addressed. And then the fourth basic function is oversight. So as part of the process of writing and passing laws, our legislature also has a responsibility to keep track of, manage, or supervise the implementation of those laws once they've been passed. So this is especially important when it comes to agencies, government agencies that are under the oversight of Congress, but it's also important, more and more so over time, when we think about the government subcontracting with other agencies to actually implement laws and get things done. So if the government has subcontracted with a specific agency, or if there's a private corporation, but the implications of their work impacts our nation on a grand scale, then the legislature has the authority to engage in oversight. And that's why you may hear about legislative hearings when legislators are hearing from, for example, the leaders of Facebook, or depending on what the hearing is about, they'll call people in and try and get more information so that they can figure out what their role is, if there are policies on the books that are not being followed, if new policies need to be written, that kind of thing. So these four functions, lawmaking, representation, constituent services, and oversight, constitute what being a legislator is all about, how you are going to be expected to spend your workday. Now, thinking about common legislative practices, some of these I believe are mentioned in your text, but not necessarily all of them. So, and some of these are also kind of common sense terms. So the first is coalition building, and that is just what it sounds like. So legislators often have to build coalitions among one another so that they can kind of have an alliance of groups of legislators so that they can pursue a common interest. So legislators who kind of occupy a more conservative ideology may come together and create a coalition and decide that they're going to vote a particular way when bills come to the floor. Legislators who have a more liberal ideology may do the same. And there are certain coalitions that are more well known. For example, there's the Congressional Black Caucus, there's the Freedom Party coalition. So they may give themselves a name and try and institutionalize themselves. And basically, this represents a subgroup of legislators in the legislature who are willing and able, hopefully, to work together. Log rolling is a term that some of you may not be familiar with. This is the practice of legislators trading votes, maybe agreeing that I'll vote in favor of your bill, but I'm working on a bill that should be coming out soon, and if you will promise to vote for my bill in the future, I'll vote for your bill now. That kind of thing. So another term for log rolling is also called horse trading. That's the kind of thing that you probably see when you watch movies about politics or the political system. So that is another common legislative practice, because the legislators have to use that sometimes in order to get things done, to make promises to support one another in order to have their specific bills and proposals kind of move forward. A filibuster is a specific tool that's used by the Senate, and the purpose is to actually prevent any kind of final action or final vote from taking place on a specific issue. Only senators are allowed to use this tool, and they can basically use it to either delay or prevent a vote. It depends on many different factors, though. Sometimes it can definitely be used to delay a vote, but if other members of the Senate are 100% committed to voting a particular way about a bill or an issue, then the filibuster will only delay, but at some point, if and when the vote comes up again, then a filibuster can't necessarily prevent. What it can do, though, within the time frame of the delay, if there are senators who are maybe on the fence, who are not sure, or if there are senators who are convinced that they are willing to change their vote, then it can change a vote from what we might have all thought was a foregone conclusion because of the filibuster and conversations that may be happening during the filibuster. It's possible that things could change. For letter D, riders are amendments to a bill, so you've probably heard of these as well, that are unrelated to its central intent. So attaching a rider, for example, if we need to pass a budget bill and a rider is attached to direct goods and services to one of the legislator's particular states, but it's not necessarily related to the budget that's necessary to keep the country going, then that is kind of a maneuver that some legislators try to use in order to get things done on behalf of their district or their state. And then overreach is a term that's used basically to characterize legislative policies that are considered to be kind of pushing further than most of their constituents can accept. So this is definitely a subjective term. Talking about legislative overreach is really making an argument that the legislators are doing something that their constituents weren't willing or ready to do. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about how Congress is organized. And in order to give you a little bit of a visual of organization, I created a couple of visuals that I will upload to the Canvas site. So the first visual here is leadership of the House of Representatives. And then we also have a visual, very similar, showing the leadership in the Senate. So what I'll do, we'll go over these details a bit, but both of these visuals will be uploaded for you so that you can use them to study and hopefully to learn more about Congress. So first, let's start with the House of Representatives. So this visual just kind of shows, like I said, it gives an overview of how the leadership is organized, and it's relatively simple so that you don't get too lost in the details. And it does not contain the names of the leaders at this time because, of course, the leaders will change, but the nature of their duties will stay the same. So in the House of Representatives, we're looking at, you have to consider the fact that within both houses, we have a majority party, whichever party has the majority numbers, has the larger group, and we have the minority party. So there's a little note down here, which I will get to, but just keep in mind that that's the way both houses of Congress are organized in terms of which party is in the majority, which party is in the minority. So given that, we have the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House represents the majority party, and they occupy kind of the highest level in the House of Representatives. So because they occupy the highest level, they are the presiding officer, and they're considered the leader, the leading voice of the majority party. So that's why you will hear and you will see media outlets going to talk to the Speaker of the House very often, because that's kind of the top role in the House of Representatives. So they're the leader of the party. So here you have the title, and then you have a little bit of explanation of who they are and what their role is. Next level, you have the majority leader. So the Speaker is the leader of the majority, but then you also have someone with the title of majority leader. They're kind of the next in line behind the Speaker. And their purpose is to advance party goals. What that means is the Speaker may have kind of the role of being the voice for the majority, but they are not necessarily connected with all of the other legislators who are members of the majority. So part of what the majority leader does is really occupy this connecting space between the Speaker and the other members of the party, including the majority whip. So the majority leader is working to advance party goals. And then if you move one step down, you have the majority whip. And they're called the majority whip because they're part of the majority party. When we talk about the minority whip, it's the same idea. They're doing the same thing, but only for the minority party. So the majority whip actually has some very important duties. One of them is to maintain communication between the leadership, that would be the majority leader and the Speaker, and all of the other party members. They also help generate support for the party's positions on the floor. So that means the majority leader, who's working to advance party goals, is working really closely with the majority whip, who is then working with each individual member of the majority to try and make sure they understand where the party is going, what they're trying to accomplish, and what their positions are going to be with regards to different votes that are coming to the floor. They also ensure attendance of the majority party before the vote happens to make sure folks are there so that they can get their vote documented. They persuade any members who are kind of wavering or on the fence. They try to do their best to persuade them to vote for the party's positions. And then finally, the majority whip will count the votes. Once the votes happen, they have to, they want to document that to make sure that everyone understands kind of how everyone voted when the time came. Now, the only difference with regard to the minority party, their visual is the same, but they have no Speaker. So this role is only occupied by the person who is considered the head of the majority party. However, the minority party has a minority leader, and the minority party has the minority whip, and they do the same thing. They're trying to advance the party goals, and the whip is doing the same things as well. So I'm going to break here, and then we'll start by looking at the visual of leadership for the Senate.